Okay, folks, welcome back to session 2 of Python. So in this particular case, we have got three particular things that we are going to be learning this lesson. We're going to be recapping, well, there's four things, there we go. We're going to recap what we did just quickly in the last session, and then the big three things that we're going to be learning in this lesson today are going to be asking the user a question. We're going to be adding messages and strings together, and then we're going to be printing on multiple lines. So, yay, learning intentions. So those are the three things. Let's kick off, shall we? So if you remember, and here's our code from our previous lesson, we learned about variables. Variables store data, and of those particular data, there can be different types, and the data that we are going to be looking at today again are strings. Strings which are anything we want. Letters, numbers, they can be anything as long as they are not doing math. So you cannot do math with a string. Sorry, my brain was catching up there. So what else can we do with strings? Well, I love that light. Maybe I should stand up while I'm doing this. All right, so what we're going to be doing today with our strings is that we're going to be getting them, but this time we're going to be getting them from a user. So to do that, we are going to be now, unfortunately, I'm going to delete the old code. Goodbye. We're going to be using a new function today. Now, functions, that's a new word that you can probably add into your glossary. What are they? They are things that are built within Python to do things. Later on, that's a great explanation. Later on, you'll be able to create your own functions, which will be procedures or algorithms that you would like to run at multiple different times through your code. So rather than rewriting them lots of different times, you write them once and then you call them later on with the name of the function. Now, there are inbuilt ones into Python that you don't have to write. They're built straight into the language itself. And those are the functions that we're going to be using quite a bit. The one you used yesterday was a print. So print itself is a function. And in this particular case, what it does is it prints anything to the output. So it sends the information to the output to be printed out in a particular fashion. So in this particular case, we've got the function print. Then we have the brackets. So every function will have two brackets inside which you put what are called arguments, which are basically the things that you want the function to do. So in the case of print, the arguments are the stuff that gets output. There are some functions that you will run which will have nothing in the brackets because they don't require arguments. But once again, we'll get back to that later. For all the ones that you'll be using today and for the next few sessions, they will have arguments in them. They will have stuff in them that we need them to do. So in the case of print, you can put strings in them, you can put variables in them, or you can put both. And we'll be doing that today as well, which is where the printing or adding messages together part of the challenge comes in. So that's the standard print. But let's say that we want to say hello to a person. So that's the code that we're going to be writing today. We want the user to put their name in, and then we want to say hello to them. So to do that, we have to get the input from the user, which funnily enough uses the function input. So I'm going to write in input. Now, as you can see there on REPL, it's saying, hey, input or raw input. Those of you who are from the Python 2.7 days, raw input was the input that we used to get strings. Now, it's pretty much just input, and it will default to a string. We can then change it to the other data types, which we will get to in the other lessons. But for right now, we just want them to be strings. So we're going to go input, and we're going to say, oh, well, this is the point where we can trigger the user with a question. So we can say input, what is your name? Now I'm putting a little space there, and I'll show you why in a second. Now, input, what is your name? If I run that program, it's probably not going to work. Let's find out what happens. Oh, hello, what is your name? Chris. Now, it did work, but the problem is that I put the name Chris in, but it's not being stored anywhere. So that's a bit of an issue, which is easily solved by going in front of input and creating a variable. So once again, the equal sign assigns whatever the information is to the variable, just like we did before when we went name equals Boris. But in this particular case, we're going name equals input. And we're asking the user, what is your name? So if I come down here and go print name, and then I'm going to run the program, what is your name? Chris, and it prints Chris. What is your name? Jennifer. Prints Jennifer. Pretty easy. So what we've done there is we've got an input, we've put it into a variable, and then we've used that variable later on. But remember, part of what we wanted to do was we wanted our program to say hello to a person. So let's add that into our print. Now, the way we can do this is we're going to use maths. Now, I did say you cannot math strings, but in this particular case, the symbols are going to do something different. They're going to do what's called concatenating the strings together, adding two strings together to form into one full print. So, in this particular case, I can say print hello and then plus name. Now, let's see what that does. Let's go back to using Chris, and it says hello Chris. Now, a couple of problems there, or one big problem is that any English teacher would look at that and go, oh, where's your space? Where's your punctuation? It's not there. Now, sometimes there are ways to put in appropriate punctuation. One of those used to be a comma. So if I say, hello Chris, the comma automatically puts in for us that space between the different lines. So that is one way to do it. We're using the comma to specifically say, no, I want there to be a separation between these two things that I'm printing, if you please. The other way to do it is going to be to add another plus symbol and then just add a blank string. So in this particular case, hello Chris, we've got a space, but we've got a space specifically because we put it there. So you could use the comma when you're just doing a very simple, I just want a space here. But if you want a space and then some other characters, for example, we could get an ellipsis going on in here. Hello, Chris. So that's really changed the way that we've done this. Hello, Chris. You could do that just by adding another string in. Now, the other thing we could do is, is we could say, let's get another variable called name2. And let's go, what is your name? And then we're going to copy and paste our print down here. And we're going to say, hello, Chris, comma, and, comma, hello, comma, name2. That's going to be happening quite a bit. Running this particular script, we've got, oops, can't spell Chris. We've got hello Chris, and then we'll have Bonnie. Hello Chris and hello Bonnie. So that's a way that you can string together multiple strings. You can add them all together using the different operators and different symbols that I've just shown you there to be able to print across there. Now, something different I want to show you here too. You'll note that we have been using double quotation marks to denote our strings. Single quotation marks will work as well. So I'm going to, we'll just leave that there. I'm going to run this script, and as you can see, I've put single quotation marks around hello world, and it still works. So it'll still print for us. It will work with either of them. However, the one thing that it will not do is work with two different. As you can see there, yep, no, something's gone wrong there. I think that's end of line while scanning string literal. So basically, in English, what that means is you gone and used the wrong symbol. So it's kind of like a syntax error, but in this case, it's actually forced the program to think something else is going on. So be consistent with your symbol uses or usage, and with REPL, since it does the second symbol for you automatically, that'll be fine. What I will say though is that for good, clean code, pick one and use it consistently all the way throughout. I've got different ones here, so I've got the single ones here and then the triple ones here. But I would strongly suggest that you folks just pick one and roll with it. Now, how do I print across multiple lines without doing multiple prints? That's the next little part that we're going to be doing here, printing across multiple lines. Let's see what happens when I do this. Survey says Chris, Bonnie, and there you go. So I've never actually done that before. I was really happy it worked. So this is where you can do a multiple line print. So if you want the prints to exist across several different lines, rather than doing 3 different print dialogues, you can just start the print dialogue and then use a triple symbol. So that would either be 3 of the single ones, 3 of the double ones, and then write your script, go to your next line, and then whenever you're finished with the particular string, and as you can see, I can shove another line in there. Let's go through our Chris and Bonnie's again. And there you go. As you can see, it's put another line in there for me. So that's a way to format your things across multiple, or format your prints across multiple lines. Just use the triple symbol. So 3 of the double quotes or 3 of the single quotes at the beginning, your string, and then at the end, the same 3 symbols again, throw in a bracket there to finish it, and job's done. Your print will work across multiple lines. Okay, so that's pretty much session 2. So what hopefully you've been able to look at and learn a little bit about today is getting an input from a user, is adding different messages together, and then printing across multiple lines. So using that, I'm going to be giving you another challenge, the session 2 challenge that will be going up on Classroom. Do that challenge, reflect on it in your journals, and once again, if you've got extra time during class, then just play about, program something interesting. Feel free to jump ahead if you want to, but just enjoy yourself and see what you come up with.